So I wanted to do a deep dive on the S&P 500 just to get a sense of where's leadership coming from this year. That will also be informative of kind of the underlying dynamics of what's actually taking place, and not just the index itself or company valuations, but what's going on in the actual real economy, what's actually driving growth, um, what the heck's happening, right? We already talked about in the first session, like the escalatory ladder of violence, right? We know it's pretty clear what's going on in society, what's going on with the investment of capital, human action, all of that stuff in terms of how people are actually deploying society's, savings imbalance right now, which appears to be positive. Um, what projects are those actually going into? And that will actually tell you the underlying dynamics of what's going on. Now, I've heard from people, in the same way you have the moniker with the news, if it bleeds, it leads. I think it's the same thing. You're tapping into the same amygdala hijacking, in our brains with doom scrolling, right? With markets. It's always a sense of like this thing is screwed, right? There's always a crash right around the corner. And, maybe there are always going to be corrections and pullbacks on markets. Those are unavoidable. Um, but, there's a lot of worry right now that everything's just, one day, one week, one event away from complete collapse. Markets are going to go to hell in a handbasket. This is 2001 all over again, or 2008, or March 2020. Got to try to understand that doesn't necessarily have to be the case from a monetary or a fundamentals perspective for equity prices. So I wanted to go in and just take a deep dive. What's actually going on? What are professionals actually bidding up and telling us where the value actually is that's driving results? And I think for the dominant kind of mindset that most kind of financial advisors and institutional investors operate under, 60/40, or adjust accordingly, right? Dial it up, dial it down, just passive equity, passive fixed income risk, choose your risk tolerance, and that's how you line it up. That doesn't actually give you much in terms of analysis on diving deep under the hood and understanding what's actually going on in the real economy. So I wanted to do that, and that can give you some confidence or conviction and where things are headed, so that you don't get shaken out on the squiggles on the line, and you don't be a buy high, sell low investor as kind of the street wants you to be, to keep their money engine humming along. Have some conviction, understand what the valuable things are that you actually want to own for the long run, that are in line with the core underlying trends of where the real and financial economy are moving. So with that note, dive deep. What are for 2025 year to date? We've got 9 months, or almost 9 months on the books now. Starting to see some separation, very obvious signs of winners and losers. So these are the top 25 performers in terms of S&P 500 return year to date. I think the first highlight I would call out. There's only one Mag 7 name on this list, and that's number 15, Avago, or AVGO, Broadcom Inc. I double check the list of the Mag 7, but I don't know if they're actually included. They might be the number 7. It's typically what Amazon, Google, Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, Microsoft. Am I missing one? Is Broadcom the seventh? Can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think Broadcom even shows up on the
All right.
Mag 7.
Okay, so check that. We'll check that in show notes, right? Broadcom may be one of those market leaders from 2023, 2024. Other than that, you don't see any of those other FANG names on the top performers list. Yet you see an S&P 500 that's up 10 to 15% year to date, an aggressive rally from late April continuing into present. What that's telling me, we're seeing this is dispersion, right? But it's not necessarily dispersion through every asset class, right? So if you look at the leaders, I tagged the who's who by sector, you start to see the very clear trends, right? And so if you look at All right, number one and number four top performers in the index year to date. Seagate Technology and Western Digital Corp. What do? They make storage, right? Hard drives for data storage. This is on theme with, this AI trend that we've been talking, or that's been driving market results, essentially the bull market in equities since 2023. Um, so it's part of that theme. And I think maybe we don't have the right word, is going to be my takeaway after this to describe this wave that's pushing equity markets forward. I'll get into that in a second. When we think AI, you tend to just think of the GPT model companies, command line based interfaces, ChatGPT, Grok, Perplexity, etc. My point here as we go through this list, it's going to become extremely hard to refute this evidence now that it's laid out. But this is a much bigger underlying trend. It's an entire kind of industry landscape, if you will, or economic landscape. I think that's shaping up. And I think that'll lead some conclusions that there's actually something much bigger going on. And this probably isn't a 2001 or 2008 or 2020 type of situation where we're building up, uh, we're deploying society's savings into investment that's not leading to any economic results at the end of the day. So, point there, we covered Seagate and Western Digital. That's the data storage, right? Cameron, you can talk about data pipelines, right?
Yep.
To run and train the data models, what do you need? You need hard drive space. So you're slurping up data from sensors. We'll talk about those in a second. Just making massive data sets. You have the compute layer, which will be the GPUs and where the data kind of processing takes place. But the storage, that's the resting point of where the inputs and outputs finally go. You see the top two of the top four performers in the S&P 500 are data storage. That's telling you that the demand is very strong from this underlying trend that's driving economic growth. The strong signal in that is my argument. Any comments there, Cameron, before we go to the next
I would
one?
just add too that the storage pieces, if you dig into what Seagate and Western Digital are actually building right now, it's very interesting, but it is very technical, right? It's things that are all about increasing bandwidth, increasing throughput. And if you think about it, if you need to run these inference models, things like that, you need to find ways to move. You see these models, they say trained on petabytes of data. You got to be
Yeah,
able to run that data through the pipes that as fast as possible, which also means you got to pull them off storage as fast as possible. So there's some interesting things going on in that storage space for sure.
yeah. All right, and then yeah, as you mentioned, throughput. I think that's just a natural. I'll skip going down the list and make sure we cover everybody, Cameron.
Yep.
But number 14, Corning Inc., probably the largest maker of fiber optic cable, right, for that data transmission,
Yep.
photonic components for telecommunications. They manufacture glass panels, so the things for your iPad screens or iPhone screens. That's what really carried the equity or the business in the 2010s as that adoption of mobile as kind of the input or the edge of this big system, right, of I don't know what you call it, just data, right, information, right, hit the endpoints. Like we put iPhones in everybody's pockets. Well, to make the glass screens shatter resistant, the Gorilla Glass, all of that drove Corning equity higher in the 2010s. But for this wave, right, what's going on with the data processing, like essentially a completely new generation of information technology, right? Well, it's fiber optics, right, or that throughput that is really driving the business from a revenue standpoint, right? Um, I don't know, Cameron, do you know more about Corning or anything deeper there to add?
Not specifically, you touched on kind of what I
Okay.
would touch on, but I do want to note I just looked it up. Broadcom confirmed is in Mag 7, so
It is one of the,
yep.
that's what I thought. I thought they were like the number seven. They've been an addition since they've been performing so strongly in
I always just don't think about them
23,
in that
24,
default Mag
2025.
7, but yep,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yep. They are considered one of the behemoths at this point. But they're the only one of the seven in the list. The next one I mentioned, number five, Oracle AI and data processing, I call them. They're really And you can talk about Oracle as a very kind of complicated or complex business. They have their hand in a lot of different kind of sectors of information technology. Number one above of that would be their data warehousing, right? The Oracle databases, right? Data warehouses, large solutions for corporate clients, right? But on top of that, they're just doing a ton of work with the companies who are ultimately like building these models, right? So they're a key supplier into this AI and data processing trend. Anything there, Cameron? And they had a massive earnings number this week. Stock was up 34%. Um, the headlines will say, "Hey, Larry Ellison's now the richest man in the world." It's like we're missing the forest for the trees if we just focus on those catchy headlines, just tracking individuals and their celebrity, not really appreciating what that value signaling is what the market is telling you with its value signaling on what's actually happening in
Yep.
the real economy. Yeah.
I think it's just a further comment on, if you look at each of these individually, you might say, okay, well, Seagate, I bought a hard drive for my computer, not a big deal. Oracle, well, I don't know, I use MySQL database or Postgres, right, or whatever it might be. But if you really dig into it, what is this? This is corporate level. This is I need to go build data centers across the country. I'm going to contract with Oracle to design and develop all of these, right? I'm going to contract with Seagate to go build 100,000 SSDs to deliver in the next month, right? Whatever it might be. So these are really, if you see the names, you might initially think, well, these are just household,
Yep.
generic tech companies, but these are all specifically in that big space of designing out full, end-to-end data center projects.
Yep. All right. I think the next one I'd mention, the next kind of grouping, number 8, Amphenol, number 20, Jabil, and number 23, TE Connectivity. I would catalog these as sensors, right? And so if you think about what do you need for all this AI, you need a bunch of data, right? Well, the sensors are that, right? They're non-human input derived data sources. So capturing data anywhere and everywhere could be natural processes, weather, etc. Um, could be manufacturing processes, right? I mean, just the demand for sensors is just very strong and robust. And it's, if you think about inputs, right, to this entire kind of new industrial revolution, I guess. I don't know if you want to call it that term. It's very WEF, World Economic Forum terminology. But the inputs to this new economy are, first and foremost is data, right? So the sensors are key to that. Talked about the other core goods, right? You need a data center, you need um, GPUs, you need some human capital who knows what they're doing in this space, all of that. But at the end of the day, data. If you don't have data,
Yep.
there's no model training. So yeah, those sensors, the performance, they're part of this ecosystem. The next one I go number 11, Micron, right? So there's kind of a trend I'm hearing to the experts, and I'm definitely not one of them. This is something I'm striving to know more about. My focus is fixed income markets, and then my passion and hobby is Bitcoin as well, and I blend those two. But understanding data and all these ecosystems deeper, something we're striving on doing. I know Cameron, your expertise is much better than mine already. But in terms of what's going on with memory right now, what I've heard some industry analysts say is particularly interesting here. Basically, they're saying there may be a way to essentially run not the training layer, right? The training layer is very GPU intensive still, but the model recall or inference steps where you're actually asking the model to do things like how we interface with a command line tool like ChatGPT, for example. A lot of that can actually be run sufficiently in memory, right? So on the edge of the device, that's a trend that's happening. So Micron performance, number 11, they tend to be very cyclical, right? Demand for memory. but they may be riding kind of a bull wave within this wave as well, as more of that demand shifts over from GPUs towards memory for processing instead of centralized or taking place at the centralized data center, which is very CapEx intensive. Um, for all the inputs that go into that, real estate, GPUs, energy, etc. If you do it on memory, well, you push that to the node or to the outer edge of the system with the ultimate endpoint, whether it's a person in their role in their job as a business, running these models on their local devices, or an individual calling ChatGPT, talking to it on their phone, all that stuff. That is definitely a social trend as well. People becoming friends with their chatbots, as kind of the movie Her predicted back in early 2010s. If anybody's seen that or remember that Joaquin Phoenix movie, that seems to be like something that's going on as well here.
And I'd add to,
Uh,
again, it's the data center build out, right? So you still need some base level of general compute that's not a GPU to be able to run the actual, usually it's a hyper specific, hyper proprietary type of distribution or something, but you still need RAM for that, right? So there's on top of the, growing need or want on endpoint consumer endpoints for higher amounts of RAM. You are also seeing that for the actual data center space. So Matt's absolutely right. Even here at my house, you can run local models. I encourage anybody to try it, but you'll find quickly that you need a lot of RAM to do it. So it's just another piece of the puzzle there.
Yep. All right. I think the last one on this we haven't touched in the AI data or information technology space in this big new wave. Number 21 and 22, the fabless chip design production companies, Lam Research Corp and KLA Corp. Um, Basically these firms don't have the high capex of developing the chip fabrication or semiconductor fabrication facilities, which are massive costs. They're some of the largest capex projects that humanity's ever undertaken. We pretty much send all of that business to TSM, right? Taiwan Semiconductor. So you're ultra smart people here from Lam Research, KLA Corp, those types of companies. They'll design the thing and then they'll ship those plans, those directions, if you will, um, to like a TSM. They'll actually produce the good. But yeah, number one and number 2021 and 2022, your semiconductor design shops continue to show that strong performance that they have over kind of this entire bull cycle. So you can kind of see in the blue, this is, in my opinion, this AI information processing, all of this is they are driving like in aggregate your performance of the equity market. So if you're a financial advisor and you tell your client, hey, our plan is 60/40, under the hood, this is what you're betting on is this thing. This is what's driving you, your whatever your expected return number is, 8, 10%, 12%, whatever you're expecting to get from equity. This is the growth, right? Those the lines highlighted in blue. And I think the key thing this year, it's not just your Mag 7, like your hyperscalers where the capital is flowing and the returns are. It's spreading into more companies who are providing picks and shovels and contributing to this overall industry. And at the end of the day, like this is where the economy appears to be headed. Now, does it work? Yes or no? That's what we're going to find out. But this trend, if everybody's worried about a 2001 or a 2008, we're getting frothy or everything's too concentrated in one name. Microsoft and NVIDIA add the largest, two companies in the index, et cetera. Everything else tied to this is actually coming along and kind of trailing in their wake. So you're seeing dispersion take place.